Our text from the Old Testament reading, Genesis chapter 32. In Jesus' name, amen. Sometimes scars are more than a reminder of pain. This past week I received pictures and video from my childhood church back in Iowa. I want to thank Michelle and whoever took the pictures. Michelle sent them to me, my brother's girlfriend. The images captured the demolition of the St. John Lutheran grade school building where I went to grade school because of a gas explosion last winter that severely damaged it. One video was taken from the south looking north up a sidewalk at the east entrance to the building being ripped down. As bricks and steel was tumbling, I had a sudden memory. A gangly, clumsy boy, maybe 8 or 10 years old, running on that sidewalk, tripping and planting his face on the concrete, precisely hitting his forehead on a small pebble. No major damage, little blood, but left a scar right here. That's not a dimple, that's a scar. That memory and this scar caused me to start thinking about 9 years of education there. K through 8, teachers, cooks, and what a cook we had, classmates, parents, books, ball games, and a foundation of lifetime that was filled with Jesus. A scar can be much more than a reminder of pain. Last week I mentioned Genesis 31:49, a memorial called Mitzpah. The words, "The Lord watch between you and me while we are apart from one another." Those words were not spoken by a loving spouse or a betrothed couple, although that's what those words are used for today. Those were words from an angry father-in-law, Laban, to Jacob regarding Rachel and Leah and grandchildren after Jacob had rushed them away in the middle of the night to begin their journey back to the promised land. Now in our reading one chapter later, Genesis 32, it's the middle of the night again. There's a lot of repetition in Jacob's life, a lot of middle of the night stuff. And it kind of fits Jacob's name. From the Hebrew word akav came Yaakov, Jacob. Akav means to grab by the heel, and it has sort of a connotation of deception, and it fits Jacob very well. Jacob is returning to Canaan with his wives and their female servants, read surrogate wives, remember. 11 sons, 1 daughter, huge flocks and herds and the shepherds to care for them. Jacob had left home with the clothes on his back in bad terms. He, remember, had deceived his father Isaac to get the blessing. He had pretended to be his brother Esau to get the family blessing that would make him lord over his brother and to be blessed by God and by people. His older twin Esau, who came home later that day thinking he was going to get the blessing, was infuriated when he knew the blessing had already been given. That brother, older twin Esau, whose heel Jacob had been born grasping, that's where the name came from. Esau planned to wait until Daddy Isaac was dead, and then he was going to kill that brother Jacob, that heel grabber. So Mother Rebekah sent Jacob away to her brother Laban back up in Haran, way up north, for safety, and Isaac gave his blessing so that Jacob would go and find a wife from Laban's family. Now it's years later. Jacob is returning to face a brother who is perhaps still intent on murder. Chapter 32 begins with Jacob sending messengers to Esau. They return with news. Esau is coming to meet Jacob with 400 men. Jacob fears an attack. And the first thing he does is divides his people and his animals into two groups, set apart from each other so that if one group is attacked, maybe the others can escape. That's how much he fears his brother. Next day, Jacob sends groups of animals ahead as presents, read bribes, for Esau. The size of these presents tells you something about the wealth that Jacob had accumulated while he was gone. 200 female goats and 20 male goats. That's a flock all by itself. 200 female sheep and 20 male sheep. 30 milking camels, and camels were big money in those days, right? And their calves. 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. This is an immense gift to try to appease his brother. That night, Jacob stayed alone. His family and the rest of the animals had been sent across the stream. So let's hear the text again. Verse 24. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. Wrestled. The Hebrew word is avak. It's only used in these two verses, 24 and 25, in the whole of the Old Testament. And it's an example of Hebrew poetry. I told you Jacob's name came from the word akav. In English it would be A-Q-A-V. Means heel grabber. Avak in English would be A-V-A-Q, kind of flipped. It's Hebrew poetry. And it means to wrestle. Heel grabber, to wrestle. Not only the sound of the letters, but the meaning of the words is poetry. There's a lot of that in the Old Testament. 25. When the man saw that he did not prevail, he touched against Jacob. He touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. I always think that's a clue that this is not some ordinary person. An ordinary person can't just touch your hip and put it out of joint. Something else is going on here. Okay? Then he said, let me go, for the day is broken. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And he said to him, what's your name? And he said, Jacob. Then he said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven or struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. Then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And then he blessed him. One of my friends, Dr. Tim Seleska, back at Concordia Seminary, puts it this way. Why in the world are you asking my name? As if to say, by now you should know who I am. So Jacob called the place, this is telling, Peniel, saying, I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. And the sun rose upon, this is in the next two verses. The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel. It's got a U instead of an I, but it's probably just a variant spelling of the same name, meaning face of God. Limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. As this wrestling match began, I wonder, did Jacob think it was Esau sneaking up in the night to try to kill him? We don't know. But it certainly sounds like he thought he was fighting for his life. Jacob feared a face-to-face with Esau, but now Jacob is experiencing a face-to-face with God. And he survives. God blesses him, changes his name, but also makes him limp. Think back. God had blessed Abraham 2 generations earlier with a miracle child, Isaac, Jacob's father. But while waiting for that child, starting at age 75, there were 25 years of waiting. And in that time, God commanded Abram and all the males of his household to be circumcised. Ever after, a physical reminder of God's promise of a son and eventually a Savior. Circumcision a scar, if you will, to remind Abraham of God's promise. You will be a daddy by my gift. And to remind all Abram's male descendants forever after how God keeps his promises. So now, God blesses Jacob, new name Israel. It was a reminder of God's promise at Bethel all those years earlier when Jacob was running away from home, running for his life for deceiving Isaac. Back there in Genesis 28, God promised, I am with you wherever you will go. This was a middle of the night thing. Remember the dream of the stairway to heaven and the angels ascending and descending? God promised, I am with you wherever you go, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. Now, with the reminder of that promise and with a blessing, Jacob receives a physical reminder that no doubt stayed with him the rest of his life, a limp. And it was embedded in Hebrew memory by this tradition of not eating the sinew, the part of the muscle that attached the thigh to the hip of animals that they would use for food, such as sheep or cattle. One of my favorite passages is Isaiah 6, the vision of the heavenly throne room, and Isaiah's words there when he sees himself in this place. Woe is me, for I'm a man of unclean lips. Isaiah knows that his uncleanness, his sinfulness, his guilt in the presence of God's absolute perfect holiness is a death sentence. But God sends an angel to purify Isaiah's lips via a burning coal from God's altar. And then Isaiah responds to God's call for a messenger with, here I am, send me. I realize it's a vision, but in connection with this other story of Jacob, I kind of wonder, and Abraham, I kind of wonder if God gave Isaiah's lips some kind of a physical reminder. I don't know. Jacob, the heel grabber, has been wrestled and injured by God, made weaker by God, in a sense, to face what he previously feared most, his brother Esau. Made weaker by God in order that he must lean on God in his time of need. Made weaker by God so that he can be God's instrument instead of his own. In closing today, I want to read a portion of Dr. Chad Bird's book. I've mentioned him quite a lot, but this is a book called Limping with God, and it's all about the Jacob story throughout quite a bit of that Old Testament, especially Genesis. Dr. Bird understands the person of the Trinity who faced Jacob that night was the Son of God as the angel of the Lord, which is why I guess the cover drawing has an angel with wings. Doesn't say anything about wings in Genesis, but there you go. The angel of the Lord, the Son of God in the Old Testament, the Messiah showing himself across the pages of the Old Testament. So here's a portion of that chapter. On this singular occasion, then, the Son of God slipped into a human frame for an overnight stay at the Jabbok. With biceps and brawn, hands and heft, mingled his breath and sweat with the man who embodied the people of Yahweh, Jacob. Though he was God, he emptied himself, taking the form of a human wrestler, manifesting himself in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself. That's kind of a takeoff on Philippians 2, by refusing to win the fight, even the fight with Jacob. He, being divine, accommodated himself to human limitations. He, being omnipotent, limited his strength that Jacob might have the opportunity to win. And win Jacob did, but in a strange way, in a way rife with a foreboding of grace. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. The Son of God did not prevail. he would not win this fight. Even after suffering an injury, Jacob was still on top. God was still losing to man. The patriarch stubbornly refused to let him go until his divine opponent blessed him. That act would be, as it were, the final acknowledgement of his own blessed defeat, a trophy to the victor, a benediction to the man who overcame God. You see, do you not, what's happening on the banks of the Jabbok River as we, the disciples of Jesus, stand in a circle with wide-eyed wonder around these two wrestlers in the dark, hear their grunts and gasps, spy their sweat drip and muscles strain. To what are we spectators but an ancient portrayal of the final and climactic fight between God and man on the blood-soiled soil beneath a Roman cross, while the skies above were darkened? Through the keyhole of Jacob's fight, we gaze into the room of the crucifixion. The descendants of Jacob will lay hands on the Son of God, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Philippians 2:6-8. He whom Jacob pinned on the ground would be affixed to the fatal tree. And the Son of God, embracing his deadly defeat with a knowing sparkle in his eye that winks of a vacated tomb, will say, "It is finished." A trophy to humanity, a benediction to all of us Jacobs. It is done. God has lost, we have won. But of course, so it had been planned from the foundation of the world. Remember what Peter said in his Pentecost sermon? This Jesus, delivered up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God, you crucified and killed by the hands of lawless men. According to God's definite plan, according to God's foreknowledge. The sacrifice of Jesus was not a regrettable wrong turn that required a divine GPS to recalibrate the journey of salvation. The cross was the destination of the journey all along. The journey begun in Genesis. And this defeat, what a divine victory. Jesus, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God, Hebrews 12. For the joy. His defeat was his delight, for his death is our life. We follow a master whose scars are a trophy of that time when humanity, all of us Jacobs, won gold purchased with blood. Down into the dirt Jesus went. Up on the cross Jesus went. And from him we receive grace upon grace. Amen. The peace of God, which passes all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in this Christ Jesus.